Thank you for coming. We also want to acknowledge the presence of our India fraternity friends from local deities. They are here to help us cover for the water circulation. Special thanks to Suni Baptist Church Kohima for here to do the live recordings, which we will make use for further social media circulation. I am sure this issue is to be considered as one of the most pressing and challenging because it has to do with something that is threatening the normal life of our young people, whom we look at them as leaders for tomorrow, leaders of tomorrow. Now, if we look back as Nagas, we have a long history of battling with drug abuse since 1980s, and it is so pathetic to see and to know that since 1980s or even early 90s, hundreds or even thousands of talented Naga young people's life has been buried due to the addiction in drugs of different forms. One observation that we can make is when younger siblings witnesses their elder ones getting addicted to drugs and their precious lives being shortened, and when their big brothers and sisters whom they look upon have just buried right in front of their eyes, they were meant to learn the dangers of drugs. And maybe that could be the reason many could escape drugs in the process, at least during till late 90s, that's what I would assume. And the most trended name today is sunflower, which we know as flower that has seeds to be dried and to be eaten. Very healthy and very delicious. But we are told that it is now turned into powder, nice and neatly packed to be sniffed, and once tested, difficult to give up and into addiction. We are told that this drug is rampantly available around and doing more harm than good in the life of our young people. And we are informed by our media fraternity, media local deities, that this drug is being very widely introduced to the school students and school children and college students, and has become a dangerous trend posing a huge problem in terms of destroying our future generation. Now, as youth leaders or as church leaders of today, when our young people are being drawn into the deep sea of drug and substances right in front of our eyes, how can we remain a mere spectator? Naturally, even if you do not know how to swim or you know how to swim, you cannot simply stand and watch a young man drowning. You need to do something to find some ways to save or to help. Therefore, the purpose of this gathering is to deliberate on this pressing issue and to address with all urgency before it escalates to alarming proportions. We have experts to give us the right information of all what is about sunflower drug and how this is affecting our young people. Let me introduce two of the gentlemen here. We have Dr. Viketoulie, Pienyu, Senior Medical Officer, State Mental Health Institute, Kohima. We also have Mr. Vikholie, Yiese, the Project Manager of Kripa Foundation. We also have three gentlemen as panelists this afternoon to be leading us into further discussion and to give us more inputs and challenges. We have Mr. Toshi Sangde, the Youth Secretary of Abang. Can you just give a good hand? We have Mr. Wang Cha, the Youth Secretary of Hanyak. Yeah. We have Mr. Pienyu, Chishi, the Youth Secretary of WSPK. We shall begin this session by watching the small video clip which was produced by Western Suni Baptist Churches Association Youth Ministry that was circulated around on social media a few weeks back. So on behalf of the Youth Board, I would like to appreciate and thank the WSBK for the initiative and thank the leadership of Mr. Nifato. But before we go on to the short clip, we will have a short prayer to be led by Reverend Malovui, the Youth Secretary of Jackson Baptist Church Council. So you can kindly come and pray for us, and we will watch the short clip right after that. Thank you.
Okay, let us look down prayer.
Now what we will do is we will listen to two of our resource persons. First, Mr. Vikholie, followed by Dr. Viketoulie. And after that, 3 of them will join and 5 will sit here, and we will have a discussion.
My name is Vikholie. I am the program manager of Kripa Foundation. I've been around in this field for the past 18 years. Today, the main purpose of my being here, or of our being here, is to share with you the experiences that we have encountered during the stretch of our working with the drug user community. In different states, they have different names. In Manipur, they call it tumorok, that is Chilean powder. In Nagaland, we call it sunflower. In Arunachal, Assam, in most part of the northeastern states, we call it as sunflower, whereas in Manipur, they call it tumorok. Because when mixed together, it looks like, when Chilean soil mixed together, that looks very similar to the sunflower. That is why they call it tumorok. Otherwise, it's a heroin. Sunflower is nothing but a heroin, the inferior quality of heroin. Okay. The other day I was talking with my counterpart in Manipur. Why the sunflower has become so rampant? One reason is the heroin is, the prices are very high, and most of the users cannot afford. That is one reason. The second reason is at the stretch of Burma's and Manipur border, they used to have lots of factories for producing heroin before. But because of the checking by the law enforcement agencies, those all were being taken up. So now what they do is they call it a satellite factory. Okay, satellite factory. It's just a makeshift factory. Once the law enforcement agency comes, they move to other place. And when the police comes, they move to the other location. And that is where this sunflower is produced, the inferior quality of heroin. Okay. As I said earlier, before we go into in-depth discussion, it is good that we also refresh ourselves. We should know what is the signs and symptoms. Why people are taking drugs? What's the reason? So because of that, I'm presenting a short PowerPoint presentation. You just look, and if you have any doubts, any clarification, we can do that or park that for afterwards discussion. Where do you think the sunflower will fit in this classification? Because I haven't mentioned sunflower here. Our subject of discussion is sunflower today. But in this presentation, we do not find any sunflower. So in which classification or in which category this sunflower will fit in? Okay. First classification is alcohol. Second is opiate, cannabis, sedative and hypnotics. Sorry, I've already mentioned that. Yeah. And third is hallucination, tobacco, and volatile solvents. These are the classification of the drugs that the drug user usually take. And we have another classification. All these drugs that we are seeing in the presentation are being classified into 3 categories again. We call it as depression drug, hallucination. Alcohol comes into depression drugs. Opiates, sedative and hypnotics, volatile solvents, and cannabis. See, why do you ever think that why alcohol is put in depression drug? We know the depression to alchi was it? Nah, mudof was it? But usually what happens when we take alcohol? People get very smart, right? No way. This is smart ho jaye to. English में मन बहुत slow हो जाए. They tend to run here and then fight. No way. But why is this division? Why is this pacified into depression drugs? Why? This is taking into the consideration the aftermath of the effects. Okay. You see, let's say tonight I have drank alcohol, I have enjoyed. I have enjoyed with my friends, I have partied with my friends, I have danced for the whole night. What happens the next day? Now, what happens the next day? Hangover. Because of that reason, alcohol is classified as depression drugs. Okay, depression drugs are those drugs when taken after match of the effects, people get depressed. The same with opiates drugs. All this sunflower, heroin, opium, before our chairperson was mentioning RT, SP, all those comes under opiates drugs. And this opiates drug is classified under depression drugs. Now we have another classification, stimulant drugs, cocaine, ATS, tobacco, cannabis. Cocaine we don't find here especially in the northeast part of India. Then ATS, this is amphetamine types of drugs. We also call it as party drugs. Party time they do Vikholie, it will be ATS drugs. Then tobacco, cannabis, and the third classification is hallucination. LSD is a hi-fi drug as we hear. Even me, I haven't seen it. But once we take that, hallucination at the peak, hallucination. In simple words, we do depression drugs to all those drugs, depressed and stimulant drugs. When taken, it stimulates our system. Now, it stimulates our system. Usually, we see in the films. Maybe we hear people say that I dance the whole night. Maybe when you watch films, you see people dancing all the time. How can people dance for 3-4 hours continuously? Is it possible? Is it possible? I don't think it's possible. Half an hour dance position will be here. Nah. But we see in film people dancing for so many hours. It's not that everyone is taking drugs. Maybe most of the people in the discotheques, we see in the film they are taking drugs. What they do? Sniff. Psychological effects. For the new user, even I've used drugs. That was a long time back, and I gave up. When you first cut there, it doesn't feel good at all. Matha bekhai jai, feel like vomiting, but usually as we go on using, we get used to that. And the high T2 experience will soon ho jai. In the first instance, we don't experience any high. We just ask any user. We don't know high to key as we just experience matha bekhai vomiting. As we go on using, we get to know the real taste. High ho jai, rush ahe, euphoria feeling ahi jai. No, in the first place, matha hi bekhai jai, koma sati vomit bhi kule niya. This is for the new user and for the dependent person. Once we get used to that, euphoria kana ahi jai, rush feeling dekta ho jai, khushi ho jai, काम kuribole din por काम kuribole mon jai na. Gorbi amok bhandi bisi bacha se bisi काम करेगा. This is Charles cannabis काम करेगा. American bhang ganja. All these are cannabis.
In Nagaland we call it wheat.
Wheat, ganja, cocaine. Looks similar to heroin. Heroin and cocaine in a scientific differentiate only the taste. Taste difference is it. This is called infinite use of drug, party drug according to us. Different shape. Now, star type or fish, flower shape. Now, what I heard is, and I believe it's true. RPSP gun from India side it goes to the Burma. So into RPSP where they make this infinite types of drugs. Usually youngster can school going children can then right can sniff kure, petrol can sniff kure. Nah, combat and nail polish we sniff kure. All those comes under political science drugs. This is the one, sunflower. I'm sure you have seen. I have a sample. If you want, I can show you. I brought a small sample to show if anyone is interested. Because picture or dikiado or PGF or dikiado, a lot of colorful. I'm sure some of you must have seen. Because in Kohima, it is really Kohima village organization is rampantly frisking jars. So, social media yesterday, before yesterday, lots of peddlers report Tagala pictures on social media. Okay, after discussion, I'll show you the sample. I have a small sample to show. Now, why do people take drugs? We know that people take drugs. We see that people taking drugs. But why? American doctor or not right away treatment, not did I say treatment is to be. We need data. Now we are going to first. Kina if you say, before we solve the problems, American problems, it will be very, very difficult to solve the problems. Do you agree on that? Problem, we have identified the problem. Sunflower problem as we have identified. Now, the key problem, the key is how do we solve the problems? Or how do we plan to solve the problems? We all agree that sunflower has become a menace in the society. Almost many young children, I should say many young children are using sunflower. In our center, Dr. Vikholie and I want to work, daily people come for the treatment. 2-3 people comes. Before, older people used to come, now 18, 19, 17, 16 years, they are coming up for treatment. Before we try to solve the problem, we should know what is the problem. What are the factors that is giving out these problems? Now, why people take drugs? Some take because peer pressure, but try to experience to feel to have a novel feelings. Now, I'm not sure. I believe either Jawan time about a drug to try visual. None. I mean, it's a presentation that they can to come like a no electron, come out to try visual. Will be Chinese. Now, people try to keep visual. Only few selected qualified can dependent with you. That's why. Exam taking a pass on. Why do people become addicted? Why others do not? Why some people become addicted and why others do not? Now, itu kan boleh babna kumul. As a leader, you should see the usual career of drugs. How do people start taking drugs? Usually people taking drugs by experimentation. Sati khase, we have try to remove. Sati khase test let's try once. We experiment. From experimentation, start with. The factors that depends on the experimentation. Now second key way after experimentation, time to time use way. Okay, I'll just give you an example. Party let's say we sati ka pass विषय. तो सभी party विषय. तो मुझे सुबह लगा है अगर निकास party तो सभी विषय. और दूसरा सभी कभी सो काजा उन्हीं only for tonight. Why don't you take a tapet? ठीक है सर, just to please my friends, एक tapet दिखाई दीजिए. And after that, I totally stop taking it. देख. तो जाए लेकिन क्रिसमस आई है for example. अभी का नाम तो क्रिसमस तो जीसस को अभी नहीं भी किसी है ना. तो क्रिसमस आई है, तो क्रिसमस का नाम पर चलो खाई दीजिए. Occasionally use time to time. आरु चाली दीजिए. तो आरु occasion एक का है, आरु occasion एक का है आरु इना विने सब कमाला आरु birthday party है, साथी कमाला birthday party है. Normally gathering एक का है, आरु use करिए. Time to time. Experiment करिए. Occasional user का है. Now occasional user है ने की हुआ regular use है. Now, regular use है. When we type dependent one, regular use and dependent is different. Regular use a person can stay without drugs. He doesn't face as much withdrawal. Only once he becomes dependent, the withdrawal will start. He will start facing withdrawal. Last time dependence with you. Just for your information, we don't say drug addict. Okay, we say drug dependent. Drug dependent. We don't say drug addict. Addicts to different forms of addict. Maybe we like addiction addiction in one way or the other. In order, drug addict, the sound itself is discriminatory. It was addiction to we say now drug dependence. Right away we don't start taking heroin. Right away we don't start taking SP, RP gun. Suru our commonly. Gutta, Sutta, Biri, Siri, we promote ourselves. Who is an IDU? Who is an injecting drug user? Or who is a drug user? Drug user report say. Again, point one is many people have used drugs. We try to visualize. Now, the green circle. Will be next step yellow abuse stage many back off. We may back off with it. Now, abuse stage. So few APSC begin exam pass promote yellow days. Now, our red to IS officials so the base can do red dependent people who cannot stay without drugs. Now why do we need to intervene these red people? Itu red circle the key only intervene people again. Itu picture or reverse now our concentration is red to also the drug dependent person. That's why. Because green, yellow, they have already left, they are doing good now in their life. Only the red, the few selected to red there. Now we need to intervene, help that way. We all know that the drug user, they practice risky behaviors. Now, they practice risky behaviors. So risky behaviors बीमारी सिमारी लगी बोले बेसी चांसेस আছে. Now for example, मैं एक drug user আছে, मैं drug dependent আছে, मैं drug चला আছে. Let's say I have my wife, my children. तो साथी मुझे little exchange creation. Little exchange creation between heroin marriage. So let's say when I study the HIV, I say when I study the needle exchange creation. So why HIV population is not? I said na. So HIV we low like this. So we are first immediate to call us relation with our wife. So we are HIV do we are Mikey gonna like this. Na. So Mikey baca by here to high chances of my children getting HIV as well. In our Guinea, it will be married to from the red to yellow, yellow para green arrow to the larger society. Now, the risk factor is not only physical. The risk factor, physical as a psychological factors as a familial and social factors as a legal factors as a. We'll just see the factors. We have physical factors. It has HIV can lagi chances as a blood-borne viruses can lagi chances as a. Now, which I can transmit to my immediate neighbors. Then we have occupational and financial factors harms can as a drug user, I don't attend to my duty regularly. If I don't attend to my duty regularly, what will happen? My boss will fire me out. If my boss fire out, I'll face financial problem. If I face financial problem, what will happen to my family, my children, my wife, what they will eat? Tagala school figures, how do I? It continue sawo. Now, all these factors are interlinked together. Family as a psychological harms as a. Now, usually the white common do what they feel is when the white common say no one likes me. My church they so many people going in this side. In our church we not have shit again. Now, but if none of my family members likes me, we do जिंदा थाली कामे ना ए दवाई खाई खाई तक मुरी जाओ ना फ्रस्ट्रेशन हो जाए डिप्रेशन हो जाए एंजाइटी आ जाए then legal harms one is not boy dawai khamana se amigan short film lo ma geda amigan sawle parise dawai khamani he needs money without drugs he cannot stay withdrawal ka ayas ho jaye to withdrawal to ayas will be sick there se thagule na pare you do face pura man jane de once withdrawal ayas will clear na body prem hobo kau kan tingling sensation hobo bekha ho bujo la parbo gumo la parbo it already withdraw to the whole holes body holes kiman ase don so open great I feel like running nose ho jabo tears ho jabo loose motion ho jabo na withdrawal time de ina wole do the drug user to try tom kila situation ko hoy ko le na ina wole to ina time to try dawa na kashi kina ho to ta dawa khawale bisai ho tala hatte thai kan so when you hear a lot of strange people like you were like you will be chances as well. What we do is when a drug user comes, we don't say don't stop drug. No, we don't say that. Type drug dependent as well. Now, I hear that. Or for the first time counseling, I hear. So in the first instance, we don't say don't stop drug. No. We just try to assess his behaviors. Tala behaviors ki ase. Type drug user ase, type from example type inject kriya ase. To inject kriya ase, type share bhi kriya ase. Na, type share bhi kriya ase, type inject kriya ase. So what we do first is, okay, you are taking drug. Thik ase, will be don't share. If you share, you will transmit or you will get बीमारी से blood-borne viruses ना अपनी पावर होले अपनी लोगों थकिया था मानो लोगों transmit करी दियो. First step, then in the process of counseling, aste inject करिया तो अपनी ना inject करिया तो risky ऐसे abscess can be without chances ऐसे तो why don't you stop injecting and take orally? That is second step of harm reduction. So after taking orally, oral cancer only, still then he's taking illegal drugs. So what we do next is, okay, you cannot give up drug. This is illegal drugs. Why don't you shift to legal drugs? Legal drugs, we have treatment as oral substitution therapy, we become legal drugs as our doctor is, and he's also a master trainer in OST. So, by OST, join Korea. He started with LMG. So in the process, aste taga function Korea, aste talaga MG to down Korea, last day, 0 day. So, by 0 day, now he's clean. He gave up taking drugs. That is what we do in our harm reduction program. And whatever NACO is doing, the Nagaland State AIDS Control is doing, all those are harm reduction program. Demand reduction aim to reduce the desire to use drugs and to prevent, reduce, or delay the initiation of drug, to disrupt the supply and availability, and parties aim to reduce the negative impact of drug and drug-related activities in individuals and community.
Finally, the church is beginning to wake up to one of the most pertinent and relevant social issues in our times. Drug use was a big problem in the 90s. I'm sure most of you were in schools during the 90s. I had just joined work. Drug abuse was the most and the biggest social menace in our society then, back in the 90s. I'm from Kohima village. In my village, almost 1 in every 2 families, 1 in every 3 families was affected with drug abuse. It was such a big problem, causing a lot of related harms like burglary, crimes, thieves, getting jailed, dying of overdose, being shot by undergrounds, so many social problems related to drug use back in the 90s. And early part of the 2000 decade, we were beginning to see a slight decline. But then, it came back in a big way in this present decade. It's come back, and in a much more serious and more graver form. Today we are going to discuss about sunflower. In other words, it's called heroin. Heroin, sunflower is just the street name of heroin. A slightly degraded form, a slightly adulterated form, and a cheaper form. The pure form of heroin is very costly. 1 gram would be about 10 to 15,000 rupees. But here, what we get in the street, locally known as sunflower, we get it for about 3 to 4,000 rupees. So we will discuss a little bit about that, but to begin with, I just want to clarify a few concepts. First concept that I want to clarify is the word addiction. What do we mean by addiction? Medically speaking, when we say addiction, we mean compulsive use, repetitive use of a certain substance despite the negative consequence. Smoking is an addiction. You know it's bad, but you keep doing it. You can't help it. It's a compulsive use. Unconsciously you smoke when you're stressed out. Drinking it's an addiction. You know it's bad for your health, it's bad for your family, but you can't help it. You use it compulsively every day. So also when we talk about drugs, we call it drug addiction because it is such a compulsive habit that you do it despite the negative consequence. Yes, he has rightly said these days we don't use the word drug addict. We use the word substance abuser. It is a little more politically acceptable. Drug addict is considered politically incorrect. These people are also very smart, drug users. And when we say drug addict, it means, we mean in a very derogatory sense. It has a very derogatory connotation. Because of that, they have so many human rights legal people to plead on their behalf, and the word was changed into substance abuser. So because of that, nowadays we don't use the word substance abuse. So addiction simply means compulsive desire to repeatedly use a substance despite the negative effects. The other thing that I want you to know is substance. When we say substance, we mean alcohol, we mean drugs, we mean cough syrup, we mean all this ganjas, cocaine, everything comes under substance. Then the other thing that I want you to know is psychotropic drugs. He has also mentioned a little bit. Whatever I'm going to say will be, there will be a little overlapping of what he has already said. Psychotropic drugs, they all come under this. All this heroin, alcohol, ganja, all these psychotropic drugs have a special ability to cross the blood-brain barrier into the brain, okay? Every drug that we take doesn't go to the brain, okay? Some of them act inside the stomach, so some of them act on the point of infection, some of them act on the bone, some of them act on the muscles, but some drugs has a special affinity for crossing the blood-brain barrier. Inside the brain we have a barrier that does not allow all drugs that we take to go into the brain. So these substances are called as psychotropic drugs like alcohol, heroin, and all this that we are discussing about today. And these drugs, when they enter the brain, they sit on some receptors, a place where they can sit and exert their action. And they influence our feelings, our thoughts, our emotions, and our behavior. These substances are called as psychotropic drugs. Very, very powerful drugs. The other thing that I want you to be conversant with is the word use, abuse, and dependent. Very often used in our discussion. Use, he has already said a little bit, an occasional recreational use. The other day we had a birthday party and I had a can of beer. That's called use. I don't use it every day. I don't drink every day. The other day, next day, I'm back to my office and I can function normally. I don't need to be treated. I don't need to be given any counseling for an occasional use. That's the word use. All of us had used a peg of alcohol or a glass of beer at one time or the other. No problem. We don't consider that as a problem. You don't need to be treated. The other word that we need to be conversant with is the word abuse. Abuse means now you are using it almost regularly. You know it's causing you some harm, psychological harm. It is causing you some harm in your relationship. It's affecting your budget. It's affecting your health. You know the negative consequences that is coming with your habit. But you can't give up. And you continue to use it every day. This is known as abuse. Okay? The third term that we need to be conversant with is dependence. By now, you are using your substance every day. You need it to feel comfortable. The body needs a certain dose of your drugs and his alcohol every day to remain in a state of comfort, to feel normal, to feel good. And when you don't use it, you begin to start having some problem. You start craving for it. You start having withdrawals. Because of your use, you start neglecting your responsibilities, family responsibilities, occupational responsibilities. Because of your dependence, you're beginning to have some conflict with the law, with the police people, and some problems with your health. Finally, you have been abusing for the last 10, 20 years. It's beginning to take its toll on your physical health as well. So this is known as dependence. Okay? Use, abuse, and dependence. These are three words that we use very frequently in our discussion. So what happens when you do sunflower? You take in two forms, either in injectable form, for which we call them IV users, IDUs, intravenous drug users, IDUs normally. we can take in injectable form, or we can chase. The powder is put on the foil, a plastic foil, and you burn a lighter under the foil. When it evaporates, you sniff the smoke. When you sniff the smoke, when you inhale it, it goes straight into the brain. Not to the liver, okay? It goes straight into the brain, and it sits on those opiate receptors. Opiates are this substances that he has just said. Opiates are heroin, opium, SP, spasmoprozolone, Relipen, then cough syrups like codeine cough syrups. These are all called as opiates, okay? And why this is so popular in our society, even in America, is because of its pleasant effects it produces in the brain. So when you sniff this substance goes straight into the brain and they sit on those receptors, opioid receptors, and they exert their action. Okay? When they exert their action, it produces some neurotransmitters inside the brain. They call it dopamine and endorphin. These are called as the pleasure hormones. You feel good, relaxed, calm. You feel like sleeping. We even go to sleep. It gives you a very, very dreamy-like state of mind. And since it feels so good, so pleasurable, when you're not doing it, you start craving for it. Okay? Do you know this fact that the whole body, the whole brain is wired for pleasure? This is the way God has made us. And when you're not getting it, you crave for it. Just like having a nice dish of pork. Kalau din nak hai to you crave, you feel like having a nice pork dish. No. Same thing with drugs and alcohol. When you're not doing it, you start craving for it. This is the reason why people go back and do it again and again. It becomes a vicious cycle and you can't give up. When you give up, you begin to suffer from withdrawals. Okay? And this is how it works. First, you start with an occasional recreational use. And as you keep doing it, the body starts developing tolerance. Something known as tolerance. Earlier, one sniff was enough to make you get the high. But as you keep doing it for 2, 3 years, 4 years, your dose has to increase. The body tolerates. The same dose will not give the same high anymore. You need a higher dose. Some of our clients, they go to that extent where they spend more than 5,000, 10,000 rupees every day to get the same high. Earlier, when they were starting, they were spending just 1,500 rupees. Now they have to go to spend 5,000, 10,000 rupees to get the same high. This is known as tolerance. The same thing goes for alcohol. You start with one peg. One peg for a non-drinker is enough for you to make you feel tipsy, high. But as you keep doing it for years, you'll need 2, 3 pegs, half bottle, 1 full bottle. This is known as tolerance, okay? So it starts with a recreational use. Slowly it gets graduated into a tolerance. You have to up your dose. Then the time will come when you will start having, you will proceed into the state of dependence. I told you, when you reach the state of dependence, by now the body has become so used to getting his daily dose of sunflower that he cannot survive without it. When I don't get my stuff this morning, by the way, this sunflower acts just for about 4 to 5 hours. So when I'm not doing it this morning, by now, normally they have the dose around 6, 7 in the morning. By 10, 11, 12, if they're not doing it, they'll start getting the withdrawals. Withdrawal means you're not getting your stuff and now the body is beginning to react. It's a very, very distressing experience. A very painful experience. Joint pains, nausea, running nose, diarrhea, irritable, anxious, angry with everybody. Very, very distressing. And suppose I get back my substance and I sniff it, I feel good once again, all my pain disappears. See, this is the reason why you can't give up. It becomes a vicious cycle. Okay? This is how you become an addict. And by now, this fellow has reached the stage of dependence. He's beginning to have withdrawals. When he's not using it, he'll crave for it. He'll search here, there, everywhere. He'll do everything, anything at his disposal to get this substance. This is known as the stage of dependence. By now, he has been abusing for the last 5-10 years. Some physical problems will also be there. These people who do drugs every day, they have very poor appetite. They don't eat well. So there will be gradual loss of weight. Cacaxic, they will look emaciated. They will have other related problems like abscess. They will have TB. Some of them might have already contracted HIV/AIDS. So these are some of the complications related with dependence. And by the time dependence is reached, he would have dropped out of school. School dropout, one of the reasons for school dropping out is because of drug abuse. If he is an office goer, he will never be regular in his office. Every day, sometimes jabo, on, off. All his performance in his workplace will be neglected. His family responsibilities will be neglected. See, drug abuse is one disease that affects every aspect of the individual. Not only his physical health, but it also affects his mental health, it affects his social health, relationship with the family, it affects his relationship with the society. Every aspect of the individual gets affected. There's no other disease that affects like the disease of addiction. Addiction is also, by the way, it is considered a disease. Okay? So these are some of the harmful side effects of this drug abuse. So they go into tolerance, into dependence, and sometimes, if the patient is not very careful, it quite results into a state of overdose. We have often heard of it. Overdose or murishe. Quite often we see that. Just recently only at KGK also, one fellow was found dead. And last month, one fellow was found dead near our house in our village. He was dead in his gypsy. He was found dead. And then gradual, all this analysis went into, and then they found out that he had overdosed while driving. So this kind of accidents can happen. So this is the fatal consequence of drug use. Okay. Now, why do people, in our context, why drug use, substance abuse is so high in Nagaland and the Northeast? I've done a small study and I found that there's some unique features, unique to our society, which made substance abuse quite rampant in our society. One feature is the social acceptance. One factor is the social acceptance. Alcohol is socially accepted. It was there in our culture, even pre-Christian times. Even now, it is, despite the Prohibition Act, it is still so much prevalent in our society that nobody really takes it very seriously, people getting drunk. So because of this social acceptance, the substance abuse is prevalent. That is one reason. Another factor that is unique to our society is, I think it's because of too much leisure time. I used to work in Delhi and Bombay previously. One thing I noticed about the society is they drink, but they don't drink the whole day. After work only they drink. In Bombay, where I studied last, people are so busy. You get up in the morning at 5, 6, hurriedly eat your breakfast, dress up, rush to the train station, and then go to your work. It takes about 1 hour, 2 hours to reach your workplace. Work the whole day. After 4 or 5, chutti, come back to the train station and come back to your house. By the time it's already 7, 8. Too tired. dinner hagide 8:30 9 Dubai. And one thing that I have noticed is there is no time to abuse. In our society, the work culture is so lousy. I tell you, before 11, office delivery couldn't give it up. After 2-3 hours, we hardly work for 3 to 4 hours, and we insist on hiking our pay. Sometimes I see a strong contradiction between the amount of and quality of work and the amount we expect. Sometimes it's a little, unreasonable. Let us be easy on our government sometimes. It's so full of criticism of the government, no? I feel pity for our ministers these days. At least I'm one who feels pity for the government. Anyway, the work culture is so bad, we hardly work. And what do? Most of the time is leisure hours, free time. Now what happens? Leisure hours, either you spend it on some active recreational activity like games, sports, but we don't have that activity every day. So for most of our young people, the immediate thing they can think of is having a good time. When 2-3 boys meet, they talk about having a good time. So the only thing they can think about is going to a modu joint or a drug joint. By the way, heroin, today we're discussing about sunflower only. But there's a greater danger than sunflower. Alcohol. Alcohol is the main danger. We should have another interaction like this on another time. But we must address this issue of alcohol in our society today. This is the chief wrecker of homes. It's one of the main problems for all domestic issues. So we must address alcohol also another time. So this is having too much leisure hours and too little recreational facilities is probably another reason why a lot of young people are going into drug use. Then another thing that I have noticed about Naga parents is many of them are not very educated, not very well aware about the consequences of drugs and alcohol. And they don't mind so much. A lot of parents are negligent, a lot of parents are uninvolved about and unaware about what the children are doing. So bad parenting is also one factor, okay, why this substance abuse is so much prevalent. Another factor that I have found out in my study was a lot of parents just give pocket money, loose pocket money. 50 rupees, so it's so easy having a easy pocket money. I tell you, if you have no money and if you want to abuse drugs or abuse alcohol, it's just impossible. But when you want to abuse and when you have plenty of loose pocket money in your pocket, it becomes easy. And also that in the hands of a youngster. And I tell you, another finding is a lot of our clients started young. It becomes difficult for you to start after you have crossed 20, 21 to become a drug user or an alcoholic. Very difficult to become. By now you have already matured. But it is much more easier when you are younger. A lot of them start around class 5, 6, 7, 12, 13, 14 times there. Impressionable years. Peer influence is very strong. Everybody is doing it. So you feel out, you feel left out. You feel the odd man out when you're not doing it. Peer pressure This is another reason. So these are some of the social reasons why this drug abuse is so much prevalent in our society. Another point that I have just forgotten is a lot of unemployment issue with our present generation. Presently, I don't blame the government also. The situation is such, we have too many people totally dependent on government jobs for survival, that a lot of people are finding themselves unemployed. I blame the society, I blame the government, I also blame the education system for producing so many unemployed people. But right now, I think there are, besides the agitation that is, we have all seen it in the newspaper, but besides that, according to one statistical report, it says that about 90,000 youngsters are unemployed at the moment. When NPSC comes, there are more than 20,000 candidates vying for 100 vacancies. Very, very pitiable condition our situation is. So in a situation where we have a very high level of unemployment, a lot of young people are now indulging in drugs and alcohol. Because of frustration, because of too much stress. Yes, another reason why a lot of Nagas indulge in all these activities is because of the level of stress that is increasing in our society. Anxieties and worries are increasing every day in our workplace, in our day-to-day life. This anxieties and worries will never go. As long as we live here on earth, we'll keep having it. But a lot of people like to indulge in all these drugs and alcohol activities to cool down. In fact, the funny thing about these drugs is, these drugs, opiate drugs and alcohol, they relieve your stress. Okay, when you drink, I told you, they produce endorphins and dopamine in the brain. It makes you feel good, relaxed. That's why a lot of people like to take a couple of bags of drinks or drugs to relax. But it's got so many side effects and it's got so many negative consequences that we don't prescribe a packet of cigarette a day to relieve your stress. We don't do that. So these are some of the psychosocial reasons why it is so much prevalent in our society. Now regarding the management, it's a long topic. It's a long, very, very complicated topic. I would rather feel a little more expressive if we start our interaction. If you can ask questions, we will have so many things to tell you. It's over our years of experience working with these people. I think we can start with our discussion. Our questions, if there's any, we can ask questions, feel free. If we know, we will try to explain it, and we'll have a thorough interaction. And I feel, as the church, we can do a lot to intervene and help out the situation. The treatment part, we will leave it to the medical department. We're doing our best. As he has already suggested, today, our knowledge about substance abuse has become so much better that we also have developed a lot of countermeasures to deal with and manage the crisis. Today, drug abuse has become a manageable problem. Back in the 90s, we didn't know how to manage, but today we know how to manage. So it has become a manageable problem. But besides that, I tell you, it is very, very difficult to very, very difficult disease to treat. One of the worst disease to treat is the disease of addiction. It's easy to treat cancer. It's easy to treat HIV/AIDS. Why? The patient is so cooperative. But with the disease of addiction, the treatment is don't drink. Do you think it's possible? It's not possible to give up drinks. Very, very difficult to give up drinks or drugs. Very difficult. In the movie that we just saw, when the local boys pulled the boy up, bashed him, and threw him into the in front of the parents, the boy was pleading, please Lord, please have mercy. He was, that state of helplessness. See, it exactly described the situation of the plight of the drug user. He's in a very, very helpless and hopeless situation. We need to understand them and empathize with them. Not encourage them, but understand them and approach in what way we can help ease out this problem. I tell you, the best way the church can intervene, is through preventive activity. The prevention is the best medicine. To my experience, it is once you get into it, deep into it, very, very difficult to come out. We have been treating them. Many of them relapse after treatment. I have two problems in my own family. I have two brothers. One is an alcoholic, one is a drug user. Because of that, I got deep into this field. I said I must know very well about this drug so that I can help out the society. So this is where we are. And I feel this is one area where the church can contribute, and that is through preventive activities, holding this type of activities among the church youth. And if all of you can go and have a awareness campaign among your young people, then even that is good enough. Then church, that is about the church activities. Schools also needs to address this problem. That is what we are, advocating everywhere we go. So today, let us have a little more in that interaction. You can feel free to ask questions.